what I want to talk about today is something that is very prevalent right now or needs to be more promoted within, can you hear me okay, Scott? Okay. Within the nogging world, if you will. And that is the further education of the peering community. Right now we have CHI-NOG, of which many of you attend and are part of. But it's like the Little League coaches. It's the same people leading the way all the time. Thank God for them, Tom, Jason, and the team here, the 7 years that they've been doing this, or previous to that even, in formulating a CHI-NOG, or Christian out in New York and his team starting up something in New York. These are really great things. So that's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about making sure that we're continuing to get some of the gray hair, relaxing in the back as we get some of the other folks, younger crowd, and even in the universities, in the schools. Undergrad in peering, I'm not so sure about that, but undergrad in peering in the CHI-NOG world, why not? So some of these, don't be scared of some of the slides. They're going to be very, very wordy. We're not gonna, stand between you and drinks, as they say. Although any of you that have been at ITW all week, you should just go home anyway. You don't need any more drinks, probably. So one of the things that we have in front of us with all of this world of internet and this niche of peering is we have an opportunity. In addition to that opportunity, we have a responsibility, as far as I'm concerned. It's one of those things where what was the internet, based upon? It was based upon education. It was based upon taking students to different levels, and now we are at a different level, all right? We are at a level where you can go and search whatever you want, and you can find it, and it doesn't take long. So that fine line between the education of where we want to be, and perhaps some of the things we don't want. The dark net, that was a nice introduction to probably what I'm just talking about right there. There's things that we have to be very, very careful about in society today, and it's driven up a great deal by the internet. So the need to educate. I'd like to talk a little bit about the past, the evolution. I started in 2001 with Palo Alto Internet Exchange, one of the premier, still today, internet exchanges on the globe. And I come from the old telecom world, so I was drinking from the fire hose from day one, and I'm still drinking from the fire hose. I don't want to know what you guys know, to be honest with you. It's not my gig. I'm not an engineer, and let's see. I was in a Marriott a few years ago and called down because my toilet had plugged up, and they said, we'll send up an engineer. And I said, oh, wow, okay, that gives new meaning to engineer. So, not meaning to demean here, but there are different definitions of engineer these days. So I'd rather stay away from that one too. So share some of the past. That was a little of it. Look at where we are right now, and kind of peer, if you will, into the future and see where we're going to go next. And have some fun. I've been at this way too long to not have fun. And that's what it's all about. And I think we're all very fortunate. I would say that most of you started out tearing servers apart and putting them back together and thinking that was really fun. And I didn't do that. But here you are. You're taking what you enjoyed and you're turning it into the future. And in the 5 minutes that I've been up here already, what has changed in the internet? A lot. So, you can't grasp it all, but you can take a piece of it and hopefully spread the wealth with other people, and that's what it's all about, I think. So, I'd like to ask a couple questions here, get a little interactive with y'all. How many of your organizations peer? Raise the hands, please. Is that everybody? Okay, so that's a little over half the room. How many of you know how to spell peering? Okay, anyway, how many of you know how to define peering or have a definition of peering? And I'm going to go further with that. How How many would describe yourselves as peering? This is a legacy word. I don't think it's a word, or it's a title that should be used anymore. Peering coordinators. Richard, you're everything. Okay, all right. How many of you, as part of your roles and responsibilities within your organization, are a peering coordinator? Wow. That's a lot fewer than I thought I would see today. Yeah. Anyway, it's not probably unexpected here in Chicago. This is a very underserved market when it comes to peering. You have the king of the United States, that would be Equinix, of course, when it comes to exchanges. And I'm not promoting them, because they're my competitor. But I will say, I have a lot of friends there. I evolved, PAX evolved into Switch and Data, which evolved into Equinix. And so I have a lot of friends there and some enemies too. But regardless of that, let's get into this a bit. That's not wordy. So that slide was actually my abstract, basically, that I presented. And Jason and Tom, they bit, actually, so here I am. And you're going to have to live with me for another 24 minutes or whatever it is, 16. What is this peering? Who are these internet exchanges? Who are these peering coordinators, NOGers? Peering facilitator, there's only one. That would be me. Data centers. Data centers today are far different than they were back in the PAX days, or the beginning of PAX days. I'd like to talk about a couple of the fellows, if you will, because we are 99.999% fellows, and I use the word fellows only because of the the education world. But we need more women in this industry. And I saw yesterday at ITW there was a meeting of the ITW women. I thought that was really cool, and I know some of them, and they are very, very impressive people. What does the future of peering holder look like? Regional IXs, United IX, congratulations, it's a great group. They do a great job here in Chicago, as well as some of the other IXs on the map here in the United States. And I only represent AM6 here in the United States. I don't work globally, although that is my team still. Virtuality. How is that going to play a part in the peering world? Richard, you could speak to that, I'm sure. And yeah, so we're going to have to be real quick here, but I will buzz through these as quick as I can. This one's this is wordy, but it's also playing on, again, who in the room started when, and I don't think there's too many here that beat drums or smoke signals or anything like that. But again, I want to have some fun, so look at the pictures and enjoy those. Forget about the words, Edward Snowden, Mr. Trump, Mr., that's all I can call him, sorry. Putin, I didn't put a picture of Miss Hillary up here, but what are they doing? Come on, man. Really, is that the way the internet was intended to be used? Is that the way Twitter was intended to be used? I don't think so, but that's me. Peering. So when it comes to peering, obviously there are the definitions of the layman, and then there are the true definitions of what we think peering is. That's my daughter, peering from 13,000 feet in the world of what peering used to mean and traditionally what the layman would think it is. But I'm going to ask Christian here what his definition is of peering, because he is one of the most respected that I know in the industry. What's your definition?
Peering is dead.
All right. So there we go. So we're back to jumping out of airplanes at 13,000 feet, and peering is dead. She didn't die, by the way. She's fine. Damn you. You really blew it for me there. Who would like to give me a good definition of peering? Or, again, I asked earlier if you had definitions of peering. I'm not sure who did. No, he's primed for another one. Anybody? Does anybody? Tom, come on. You run this show. What's your definition of peering, if I may? And I'd like to hear how you would explain it to friends and family.
So I think if you look at the internet, not just a big cloud, but it's a bunch of networks that are all interconnected, and they need some point to interconnect, and peering is that point where they do that.
All right. You stuck cloud in there. Cloud, wow. Cloud used to have 3 million definitions. Today it only has 1 million. So, not to be critical. Thank you. I appreciate that. IX, an internet exchange. So that's why I wanted to wait for Ben. Mr. Links here. Ben, what's your definition of an internet exchange?
Whatever is linked is where everybody comes to peer.
I needed to pay you guys, didn't I? This is. You got your money there. You got your advertisement in. Anyway, I have a very different definition of peering that I use for the layman, or really anybody, because there are so many people that just don't know what it is. Talk about not knowing things. Look at these two knuckleheads. So they're peering right there, right? And hopefully that's all they do, because, yeah. But I present peering as a party, all right? According to Wikipedia, a voluntary interconnection of administratively separate internet networks for the purpose of exchanging traffic between the users of each network. Oh man, put me to bed, put me to sleep, dull, boring. And look at the diagram, how boring is that? I talk about it as a party, and I talk about peering coordinators, which again, peering coordinators is a title that should probably go away, because peering coordinators, and they would love to hear me say this, and they can see it right on the video if they'd like, I hope at some point in time, they're all salespeople. They are. I go to every NANOG since 22. We're going to number 70 here in Seattle in a couple weeks. You know, they sit on the back channels and they talk about, this sales guy called me today. He thought I was going to pick up the phone. And I go, yeah? Well, he's got a family. He's trying to feed them. But I go to these NANOGs, and what are these people doing? They're selling each other all day long. They're negotiating. You want to peer with me, Christian? No, because peering's dead. But anyway, Tom might. Guests at a party. We're the host. So we have an exchange. And in that exchange, we're inviting, you know, Christian comes to me at the party and says, hey, who is that over there? And I'm like, oh, you'd like to meet her. Her name is Hien. And so I back off and introduce them and back off, and then whatever happens, and it's none of my business because I'm neutral. That's the way I look at peering. I am a neutral golden nugget sitting in strategic data centers across the globe, and I'm introducing Bob Bender, where are you? I'm introducing Bob to somebody just across the lake here in Chicago, so that they can determine whether they want to peer with each other. It kind of makes sense to people, and I like to keep it at the level of brain surgeon. That what I do is brain surgery because it's job security. You know, it is. It really is. It's close to it. But the guests at the party are the NOGers. Like I said, I went to my first NOG in 2001, I guess, out in Scottsdale, Arizona. I'm from here, but I've been on vacation in Arizona for 27 years. And I was introduced when I jumped out of the old telecom world in 2001 to the NOGers by a couple of the queens of the NANOG world. And they actually got me into a NANOG when my card did say sales, Jason Gorley, when my card did say sales, and they primed me for it. They said, you know, Phil, you probably want to, you know, not shave for a couple days, spike your hair a little more than you already do, maybe rub a little pizza under your armpits, and a little white tape on your glasses or something, I don't know. So I did. And I walked in the door at this NANOG where there were 500 engineers and me, and because that was the days when they didn't let salespeople in. And I walked up to the desk and they said, you're a sales guy. And I said, how did you do that? I said, you know, I worked really hard to do this grunge. And anyway, I got in. I was lucky to be introduced to those people. And I drink from the fire hose every day. But I think that's what we need more of. And I think it needs to start with, again, I'm really kind of floored by network operator group like this that is one of the strongest, if not the strongest, of NOGers, besides NANOG, of course, domestically at least, that there's not more of you that are really involved in the NANOG world. And I encourage you to continue to come to these. In New York, I know that the NINOG is having their events, they've had 3 already, so maybe an annual event is hard to just, sometimes you got to miss it, so you miss it for a whole year. But maybe some, constructive feedback would be that you guys have it maybe a couple times a year if you can. And I know you spend a lot of money on this, and you do a fantastic job. But the NOGers of the world are the coordinators, the peering coordinators, and they're the guests at the party. Internet exchange points, we've gone from approximately 50 back in 2001 to whatever today. I know I put on there approximately 500. I don't even know how close that is. That's why I say approximate. But 2001, big fat 1 gig pipes were running for $14,000 a month for peering. That's when I got to PAX. 2 months later, they were free. But, and that's true. I mean, they just dropped down to nothing. And that's another reason that, we need to continue this, because the net, working for an American company back in the day and looking across the Atlantic or the Pacific, either one, at the peering in the other parts of the world, it was so drastically different. We were the bureaucratic Americans looking for the almighty dollar, $14,000 a month. And the rest of the world was, I thought, doing this for kumbaya and for education like it was introduced as. And I still feel that way in a lot of ways. I think we've done better here. But regardless of that, that's why I put that last point on there. So internet exchange points are the venue. Did you still hear me? Okay. And then peering facilitator, again, when I said me, I don't know that anybody else in the world has that title, and I'm not being egotistical. It's just that when I got my first box of cards, when I went to work for AMP6, it said sales coordinator, and I looked at them and I said, come on, guys. Sales? Really? You want me to try and sell to these folks? I know them all, not all, but I know many of them, and sales is just not part of what their mentality is. Plus, I don't sell. I introduce. And anybody that thinks that, there are salespeople out there, believe me. I'm not a fan either, to be honest with you. But when it comes to my title, I picked it out because, peering folks know where they want to peer, they know when they want to peer, they know who they want to peer with, and they know that they don't want to pay anything for it. So what's in that when it comes to sales? I picked out facilitator because facile meaning easy. I just want to make it easy for people to peer, whether I'm working at AMP6 or I'm working, somewhere else, and I'm still in the peering world. I want to make it easy for them to peer because that's what it's about. I'll get paid my money either way. So, host of the party, there is, these pictures show Ren, who some of you probably know, who was very, very influential for me in bringing me into, bringing me into the world of peering and getting me into that NANOG, and I thank her every day for it, because I love working with the NANOG people. I love working with the NANOGers of the world. I get educated every day. And Mr. Koch there, and that is our sales team. That's our global sales team in the middle. A couple of the influential people in the beginning of IXs and the beginning of data centers, which were combined. Data centers combined internet exchanges. Jay Adelson started PAX. It was a deck test tube baby. with Paul Vixie and him, and I'm going to go a little quicker here. And that is 529 Bryant in Palo Alto. From the day I started in this, people said, you know, data center's a data center's a data center. Well, that's not true, especially today because they've changed drastically. But if you ever get a chance to see the original PAX, it is a really, really interesting place because we weren't there to sell colo. We were there to sell a U and a $14,000 gig port, right? We were sold to Switch and Data. We thought, you know, PAX was done, as did a lot of people. So they even changed our PAIX acronym to mean Peering and Internet Exchange versus Palo Alto Internet Exchange. But but we were still very, very, very successful. The one group that they had to keep was the sales group from PAX because we had to train and educate the sales people that were selling space and power for Switch and Data into the realm of also having in their portfolio peering. And it was a great time for us. There were only 3 of us. So there's the Peering World's 3,000-pound gorilla. That's PAX, or I mean Equinix, and PAX is part of that. I said that's PAX because it is PAX now. You know, when Jay formed PAX, he then walked across the street and formed Equinix with Al Avery. And we sat across the street, and in 2003, Equinix did a triple reverse split on their stocks. And we were laughing. We were like, we win. We're gonna be the king. And lo and behold, Metro Media Fiber Networks, who owned PAX, just dissolved or sold or whatever you want to call it. It was the build it and they will come era that they didn't come anymore. And so it further went on. So a little bit of the history, a little bit about what's going on today. Packet Fabric, Megaport, Console, the virtuality of, and I'm going to call it that, of maybe getting rid of some of these cross connects that you know, gouge all of us. Wouldn't that be nice? Get rid of some of those costs. And the IXs of the world, I already mentioned United IX. On the other coast, we've got, or on the coast of San Francisco Bay Area, we've got the San Francisco mix, the 6 up in Seattle. Oh my gosh, what a great organization. I spammed them. I spammed them when I first got into PAX in 2001, and boy did I catch it. So the first time I met the gentleman that I caught it from, I took him a case of spam. But these organizations like the 6 and these IXs, even though Christian, you know, ruined everything at the beginning and said peering was dead, it's not. And it will persevere, at least for a while. So whatever form it takes, it's going to need that further education. You know, people like Bob's daughter that is doing so well in you know, her arena at Microsoft and others. So I followed my daughter down. That was in January. So I thought I'd finish with that to let you know that I didn't just let her jump out of a plane all by herself. Of course, she had a really handsome young guy on her back, so I think she was just fine as long as Colorado State. He didn't follow her there. Yeah, that's peering from my perspective, and a little bit of history. You know, 30 minutes, I could go on and on and on, as you could probably tell. But I love it. I've got a passion for it. I want to see it continue. And you know, it's one of those things that I hope others can glob onto it. That's why the Nanoggers love it so much. So thank you very much. If you have any questions, I'm happy to take them here or at the social or whatever. Uh-oh. I said questions from everybody but Richard.
So,
His mic's not working. It's good.
testing. Does it work? Richard Steenbergen, CTO of Packet Fabric. So, I think the definition of peering that you have is one from maybe 10 to 15 years ago, which is it's a party, it's a social, people should get together, they should come to a place, they should meet each other, they should all peer, and everything will get better. The internet will get better, traffic will get better, they'll save some money. minus what they pay the exchange operators, because of course, you guys aren't selling ports for free, right?
Depends on who you
And
are.
that was the way it worked, right? That was certainly in the early days. And then, you know, it moved to a world where networks got better and scale happened, and it wasn't quite the same operational sense. And now the world of peering is really more about commercial viability. There's so much more to whether it makes sense or not than whether you should come in and take a port and set up some peering and everything will get better. That's why you've seen all of the major operators, all of the traffic, all of the growth, all of the money, all of the everything that is important in networking stop caring about that. So the peering is dead reference, I would agree with completely. It is. To a separate point, interconnection is very much alive. And what I mean by that is the value of a data center with interconnection is an ecosystem. It's a giant pile of people who are buying and selling to each other, who know how to, it's where you come to access a customer base. It's where you come to find a market. And if you have to go build fiber to every single individual address, obviously that's never going to work. But an ecosystem, an interconnection environment where you've created competition, where carriers can come in and access their customers and provide better, cheaper, faster service, that's what spurs innovation. That's the only part of this that matters. So I'll take a little bit of, take my logo off the presentation next time. That's not the space that we are or want to be in. I really do think that peering is dead, and at a certain point, some people need to kind of come to that realization.
So then I and very much appreciate it. So then I guess in the education process, they need to get rid of the word peering. No, and I'm saying that, and they should replace it with, you know, and interconnection is absolutely a word that's been around for a long, long time too, but ecosystem really hits home with me with what you just said, the ecosystem infrastructure, interconnections, and I'm not verbatim obviously, but I agree with you totally. I mean, it has evolved into a different world, and so that's why I say, you know, I think the education needs to continue because it gives the appearance to the undergrad, if you will, of still being peering because they don't know.
Yeah. So if you, instead of trying to teach people how to peer, instead of trying to teach people how to show up at an IX, buy a port, go to a party, have some drinks, and then turn up some BGP sessions, teach people how to build a competitive ecosystem, how to create competition, how to network data centers together better, how to find access to suppliers who are competitive better. That is what adds value. That's the interconnection ecosystem that I see adding value. The actual concept of peering, not so much. In very specialized cases, right? Just because you set up a BGP peer with Netflix and it saved you a bunch of traffic doesn't mean you're really peering. It's a mechanism to
It's a
access.
conduit. It's a conduit.
It's a conduit, right?
Yeah.
But it's a very different definition of peering from historical. So I think it's time for an update.
I really appreciate you standing up and saying all that. I really do. Anybody else? Yeah, Ben.
Yeah, hi, Ben Hedges from Links. So I just want to respond to a couple of things from Raz. I actually agree with you at the very top end of the scale. Now, most of the large networks, their traffic flows are too big. They're not going to put that over public peering. But the role of IXs, like AMSIX, like United IX here, is not dead at all. Peering, and IXs in particular, play a very important role for the long tail. And we know that. You know, we're not trying to get these big traffic flows. We're trying to make sure that the long tail is able to reach those networks that they don't have big enough traffic flows with to get, you know, direct P&I connections or even in-net solutions. So there is a role there. It's not dead. But what you'll see is the big growth, the big traffic growth will happen outside of the IXs. But do keep supporting them. There's still going to be a need there. And one of the other points you made towards the end, the innovation, you've seen the European IXs come over here and put in a few exchanges up. And one of the differences that we've done is we go multi-site. And we do try and do that, interconnecting the data centers so they don't have the walled gardens. So we are trying to help change and innovate as well by bringing networks a bit more together. Thanks.
Thanks, Ben. Yeah, and I don't want to keep you any longer except to say that so there's a variation or an extreme variation between private networking and public networking also. So I mean, some of that is a difference. If I read, you know, or if I think about it, you know, I think there's a huge difference between those two. There obviously is, and so I'm not debating. I'm just throwing it out there that as well, you know, that's where a lot of that interconnection is going to go, and does. So I think to Ben's point, and not to defend or anything else, I think this is a conversation that needs to continue. It's that P&I versus public is also plays a big part in where is peering. I don't know. Anyway, thanks. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Tom, and this entire CHI-NOG group. Thanks.